Good evening, friends. Myself, Dr. Nidhi Darbari, on My Education Treasure. Today, in my present video, I am going to deal with the communication in using silence and non-verbal cues skill of micro teaching. According to Bhagavad Gita, among the wise of secret knowledge, I am their silence. Communication became the pivotal focus of the teaching practice. It involves a number of skills. Each individual can become a better communicator by sharpening his skills through learning and practice. Communication. Communication derived from the Latin word communicare, which means to share, is the process of transmitting information and understanding. It is the transference of meaning between individuals and the means of reaching, understanding, and influencing others. The success of an individual in a team depends greatly on the extent to which he can engage in effective communication. Communication is considered effective when it succeeds in invoking a desired response from the other person. Moreover, failures in communication can be very costly for the organization by way of reduced cooperation and subsequent ill feeling. Communication to be effective cannot be a haphazard process. It has to be planned and executed so that it evokes the desired response. Communication is complex. Effective communication contributes greatly towards mastery learning as well as management of the class. Communication is generally defined as having both a verbal and non-verbal component. We are all aware of the statement that actions speak louder than words. It is estimated that less than 10% of the interpersonal communication involves verbal through words, the remainder being made up of voice tone, sounds, and a variety of devices such as kinetics or movement, haptics or touch, oculesics or eye contact, proxemics or space, and chronomics or time, as well as posture, sound symbols, and silence, which either replace or accompany words. We cannot quantify the relative contribution of non-verbal communication to verbal communication, but non-verbal communication often provides much more meaning than people realize. Verbal communication often refers to the words we use in communication. Non-verbal communication refers to communication that is produced by some means other than words. That is why non-verbal gestures produce stronger and more lasting effects on students than spoken words. Non-verbal communication is therefore a very powerful tool in teaching. Non-verbal communication is a system consisting of a range of features often used together to aid expression. Clothing communicates important messages about who a person is and what he or she is capable of. For example, a lawyer dresses differently from a bank teller or a teacher. In the case of verbal communication, the language and the communicability of the teacher determines the success. The language chosen should be suitable for the level of students. In the case of non-verbal communication, proper planning and preparation is essential to execute it effectively, otherwise, it will lead to confusion and misunderstanding. The body language of a teacher is a cue which decides the degree of approachability and distant feeling among students. Non-verbal communication has long been neglected in the domain of teaching and learning. This new trend brought changes all over the teaching and learning process and in the roles of both the teacher and student. The role of the teacher is now of a facilitator, counselor, and animator, requiring a change in the classroom. The teacher exchanges knowledge, views, ideas, skill with the students in the class, and the students provide feedback to the teacher in one form or the other. More importance is given to the visual techniques and body language. All these reasons taken together brought non-verbal communication to the surface. A teacher revealing a story to the students by not only using a body language but also appropriate gestures, facial expressions, physical movements, modulation in voice, etc., then that a teacher is using verbal as well as non-verbal mode of communication in the classroom. A teacher will be called a good communicator only when he uses both verbal as well as non-verbal skills in the class. Examples of non-verbal communication including a smile, a wink, or a wave. All of these communicate something without the use of oral or written language. Silence can communicate in a non-verbal way. To make non-verbal communication in the classroom, we make use of all the parts of the body from the head to the toe. The way any part of the body is positioned or moved conveys the message. The head movements, the arm, hand, finger movements, the mouth and throat movements, and the entire body posture and motions can indicate clearly whether there is a positive or negative state. For instance, pouting, frowning, and stamping of feet on the ground shows the student that what they are doing does not help the progress of the lesson and therefore should be stopped. The three basic functions of non-verbal communication are managing identity, defining relationship, and conveying attitudes and feelings. The body language, gestures, facial expressions, planned pauses are more powerful means of non-verbal communication, which are generally classified as cues, signals, and symbols. A cue is a type of communication used to know what is expected in a given situation. Cues are a type of receptive communication. Designing and using a consistent routine is the beginning of teaching cue. Touch cues are ways to communicate desired actions. Sensory cue is some sensory input used to help to anticipate an event. Smell of chemical signifies location of chemistry lab. Object cues are some concrete piece of routine that is used to represent that routine. For example, duster and chalk in a class. When deciding what cue, it is important to select cues that the student can easily discriminate one from the other. Signals. Signals are form of expressive communication such as movement, gesture, etc. Symbols. Symbols are representation of an event, action, object, person or place that can be used to communicate about the events, action, object, person or place. Symbols can be used for both receptive and expressive communication. Symbols can be subject, parts of object, pictures, print, actions, gestures, signs, and speech. Both verbal and non-verbal communication are essential for effective interaction with others. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to my video to motivate me, share it with others, and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Non-verbal communication works in conjunction with the words that we utter in 6 ways: to repeat, to emphasize, to complement, to contradict, to substitute, and to regulate. Repeating occurs when the same message is sent verbally and non verbally. For example, the teacher frowns at the PowerPoint presentation while asking the students what he means. Emphasizing is the use of non-verbal cues to strengthen the message. Hugging a student and telling him that the teacher really cares about him is a stronger statement than using either words or bodily movement alone. Complimenting is different from repetition in that it goes beyond duplication of the message in two channels. It is also not a substitution of one channel for the other. The verbal and non verbal codes add meaning to each other and expand the meaning of either message alone. Tone of voice, gestures, and bodily movement all indicate feelings which goes beyond the verbal message. Contradicting occurs when verbal and non-verbal message conflict. Often this occurs accidentally. For example, if the student is angry at a teacher and have stated verbally that he is fine, but bodily movements, facial expressions, and use of space may have leaked the actual feeling. Contradiction occurs intentionally in humor and sarcasm. The words provide one message, but the non-verbal delivery tells how he feels. Substituting occurs when non-verbal codes are used instead of verbal codes. The teacher rolls his eyes, stick out the tongue, gestures thumbs down or shrug. In most cases, the teacher intended message is fairly clear. Regulating occurs when non-verbal codes are used to monitor and control interactions with others. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video and don't forget to subscribe.